It's often said that immigration integration is a two-way street, though it seems that typically the newcomers have to go further down the street than the receiving society. We've just heard from our first panel, who's looked at settlement and the integration experience from the government and the, in part, the civil society's perspective, and now we're going to look at it from the refugee perspective. And to explore the issue, we have a distinguished panel chaired by Dr. Stephanie Stobbe, an educator, trainer, and alternative dispute resolution practitioner with a PhD in peace and conflict studies. She is an associate of the Center of Conflict Resolution International. She has developed alternative dispute resolution training materials for the organization and facilitated in its seminars, workshops, and interventions dealing with organizational conflict management. She's also worked as a researcher with the Action Evaluation Research Initiative, an organization working on international research conflict resolution. And Dr. Stobbe's research interests include the workplace and organizational dispute resolution, gender and conflict resolution, human rights, refugee and immigration issues, cross-cultural issues, ethnic conflicts, and indigenous or traditional conflict resolution. So, Stephanie.
Thank you, and thanks to all of those who have been here since the beginning of this conference, and welcome to those who have recently joined us. And this is a session on settlement and integration, the refugee perspective. And I know over the last few days, it's been great hearing the history of Canadian refugee policies and the various roles that different personnel, groups, organizations, and governments played in assisting the Indo-Chinese refugees. It's been wonderful to hear the different perspectives, to share stories, and to connect with those who have worked with refugees. And on Thursday, I helped to organize the panelists for that, and you heard their stories of their escape and their experience in the refugee camps. And so this session will focus on the Laotian, Vietnamese, and Cambodian refugees' experience in settlement and integration in Canada. Looking at our Canadian history, there has been very little research and documentation of their stories. So this is a great opportunity to hear their thoughts and perspectives. And for many of those that are here today and on Thursday as well, this was the very first time that they have been invited to share their stories and been able to share their stories. So I think it's a great opportunity. So before we hear their stories, I will introduce each of the panelists, and after the introduction, I will ask each person to share 10 minutes of their stories of settlement and integration, and then once everyone has finished telling their stories, I will open it up for discussion with our audience. So to introduce the panelists, we have Ms. Pinkham Sharp, who came to Canada from Laos in 1979 with her husband and 4 young children. Since living in Canada, she worked in many occupations as a seamstress, a court reporter, and receptionist at Surrey Delta Immigrant Services. After she earned her high school equivalency diploma, she continued in her studies in office administration at Douglas College, in modern office skills at Career Development Institute, and in Superhost certificate at Kwantlen University College. Her dedication, perseverance, and friendly personality led her to her success as a sales director of Mary Kay Canada. Currently, she continues with her consulting business, and when she retires, she hopes to work on some writing projects. She is also my mother. Mr. Vince Truong was born and raised in Vietnam in the city of Long Can, along with 7 brothers and 1 sister. In 1979, they left Vietnam and made their way to the Malaysian refugee camp and eventually arrived in Kelowna, BC. After completing ESL programs, high school, and community college, Mr. Truong graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Accounting from Simon Fraser University. While in university, he decided to open up a painting business, and after 20 years, it has grown to become a successful business today. He is married with 3 children. Mrs. Tu Hoa Wong came to Canada from Vietnam in 1979. In 1978, she left Vietnam and escaped to Malaysia with her parents, 6 brothers, sister-in-law, 2 cousins, and 1 friend. From the Malaysian refugee camp, her family went to Vancouver. She studied ESL here in Canada. In 1981, she opened Dong Thai Limited, a grocery store that specializes in Southeast Asian foods in Winnipeg. This business has successfully been operating for 32 years, serving many of the different ethnic groups in Winnipeg. Mrs. Wong speaks Chinese, Vietnamese, Laotian, and is learning Spanish. Mr. Vutile came from Phnom Penh, the royal capital city, the Kingdom of Cambodia. He came to Canada with his wife and 6-month-old daughter on May 3, 1983. He was 22 years old, and his wife was 18 when they arrived in Canada. Mr. Lay earned a computing engineer technology diploma from Algonquin College, Ottawa, Ontario in 1997. He has had over 30 years' experience in architecture, engineering, and operational support. He currently works for Shared Services Canada in remote network access, network, and IT security operations. And our last panelist is Dr. Sopong Pao, who is a professor and chair of the Department of Politics and Public Administration at Ryerson University and a member of the Yeats School of Graduate Studies. He joined the department in July 2013, following a 3-year term as chair of the Political Science Department at the University of Winnipeg, my university. In addition to a PhD in International Relations and Comparative Politics from York University, Dr. Pio holds a Master of Arts in Political Science from York University and a Bachelor of Arts honors in Political Science and Peace and Conflict Studies from the University of Waterloo. Dr. Pio's research and teaching interests are generally in the fields of international relations and comparative politics, with specialization in security and democracy studies and a focus on Asia-Pacific region. So I am very glad that they are all here and willing to share their stories about their experiences in settlement and integration into Canada. So I would like to first call Pinky Hum to come up and to share her story. And I will help her with the PowerPoint.
Good morning again. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here to share my story with you. And as you see that the Laos, I came from Laos, but my parents came from Luang Prabang. Where is Luang Prabang? The Luang Prabang, where the king and queen lived. But I was born in north of Laos, northwest of Laos, in Hoi Sai. And then, we go back and forth. And then now, that's the Hoi Sai that where we live. The other side, this side is Thailand. And we across the Mekong River from the Laos to Thailand with a small boat. Can you point to a small boat? Yeah, that's one. No engine, but not a big one. So we across to it's not in the city, across to the Thailand farm. That when we walk from there to the camp, one day to get to the camp. Yeah. It was very dangerous to across the Mekong River to Thailand because the Thai soldiers were there and communists on the Mekong River as well. We were lucky that we crossed to the Thailand at 6 o'clock. The Thai soldiers, they lazy, they left early that day. They went home at 5:30, so we lucky, we safe. And then the next one, that's Stephanie. When we were in Bangkok, the Canadian government took that picture before we came to Canada. Each one of us had the number, had the name on that. It's really cute, right? And the next one, okay. That's my family. The first time when we came to arrive to Rosa, 2 days later, the newspaper came to take our picture and put on the newspaper. Yeah. You can see that my family, that's my first one, is 8 years old, and then 6 years old, and then 3 and 11 months. Yeah. And that culture shock. When I arrived at Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the weather minus 40 degrees in that night, so very cold. We arrived in the airport at 12 midnight, and the priest and the other lady came to pick us up. Then when we walked out to the car, I couldn't breathe because it's so cold, and we don't have warm clothing either. We got boots from the government in Montreal. They gave us one pair of boots for each one of us, and the jacket, that's it. And so when the sponsor drew us to Rosa, I was shocked to see the house that they provided for us. And only 3 rooms, no heat, no water, no washroom, and so it's terrible. Only the electric that they have for us, no telephone, no TV. And I think only 2 pots and a few bowls that they left in there, no fridge. We put the meat outside in the snow. They told us to put in the snow. And someday the dog came and ate, see? And we have no meat to eat. That's terrible. And we were afraid of ghosts as well because we came from Lao country. And the Buddhist people, also the parents taught us that don't go outside, they have lots of ghosts. That's how we grew up like that. And when I become a Christian now, I don't afraid of ghosts anymore. That is, and that's the house, what on is that, next to the tree, that one. And the washroom out next to the graveyard. Yeah, that's terrible. We cannot get out there. We never go into that washroom, no. And then we stay inside the house, yeah. So I had very difficult during the first year settlement. It's so depressing, and I miss home as well. And I came here, want to get a better place to live. It's more worse than my country. That's why I feel so regret. Maybe I make the mistake to bring my family here to Canada. That's it. So we live in Rosa. Oh, that's the water well that they make us to drink. It's about 1 mile from the house. My husband had to go walk through the cold snow to get that water. And the water, where is the side, the other one? And the sign said that water you cannot be drink. Look at, and then lucky that I was boil the water before I drink it. That's what we saved. So we were not given the rice, like I said yesterday. We wanted to eat rice. 1 week later, I look at dictionary. I said, I want rice. Then he said, no rice. Then I said, I want to ask him why, but I have to turn in dictionary again, where I said W-H-Y. And then I said, why? Then he said, no good. Then he said, he didn't know that we came from the Asian. They were supposed to let us eat the Asian food a little bit for a while. Later we can get used to the Canadian food, That's difficult. And also the communication problem, because I don't speak English. I wanted to go to school, and he said I was too old to study. And also that town, they have no ESL either. Only Stanback, I heard that they have. That's why I wanted to move to Stanback or Winnipeg. They have an international school for the ESL. Yeah, that's why they didn't provide me the language at all. That's so complicated to communicate with them. Now I can show. That's the Catholic church that they sponsor us. And that is Stephanie again standing there. And wait the picture that they took you to catechism. Yeah, that's the priest. You remember that? That priest. Nobody in Manitoba. Sorry. That's the priest. That is Stephanie on the left. That one. And then top there, her sister. Now, every Sunday, the priest came to pick them up to go to their church. And they spoke Ukrainian, but he expect us to understand. We didn't even know English. And then we were attending the church, and they talk Ukrainian, blah, blah, blah. Then we don't know. Yeah. And that's so boring. I almost fell asleep. Yeah. Yeah. They know. And that's the first year, I think a few months later, our neighbor invited us over surprise birthday party for her sister. So you will see her name and the other one. Or the neighbor, Subati and Peter, right? Yeah, and Subati, that they invited us over. And also we have another neighbor. Not right away. I think a few months later, they saw us that living in the poor condition, and they felt compassion for us, and they came over to take the children to go to their home to take a bath once a week, and they water clothes for us once a week as well, and also invited us for dinner. That we did that with them, and that's why after 7 months, I couldn't take it anymore. That's why I wrote a note to another neighbor that I wanted to talk to the Lao Association. And then she helped me to find the name and the phone number. Then I asked her, can I use your phone? And she said, yes. So I called the Lao Association. And then in the weekend, and he came to translate for me. And then I know how to fight with sponsor at that time because someone translate for me. So. And Mr. and Mrs. Thiessen, they co-signed the mortgage for us, and we bought that house. At least we have our own house now. And I had 2 rooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs. And because both of us, my husband and I, we have job, right? We put money together, but not enough. That's why Thiessen have to co-sign. Yeah, the next one. Since we have moved away from Rosa, we feel feel better. You know, they have school nearby. For me, the daycare in the same town in the Stanback, not that far, and my work in the Stanback as well. I transfer my work from St. Malo to Stanback. That's Mrs. Subati, Anne Subati. She went to see her husband in the graveyard, so we took picture with her few years ago, right? Yeah. And the next one. Those people who helping me to allow us to take a bath at their home and to cook for us dinner every weekend. And then also, and her husband, sometimes he bought us water. And sometimes he blow the snow for us because the lot of snow on the sidewalk, right? We couldn't walk out. He had the machine to blow the snow for us, yeah. And see, good. That's a Margaret Zamborski. She worked at the same company as me. She's a manager at the factory. She offered me to drive me to work and to drive my children to daycare. For me for 7 months. She didn't charge me any penny. She wasn't my sponsor. She lived about 1 hour, no, I think half hour from Rosa, but she traveled the same road, 59 highway, to go to St. Malo. And now that's all my friends from Stanback Manitoba, from Manitoba, brother. We still keep in touch until today. And I think that last year, right? We went to visit them. I cannot visit from house to house. It's too much for me. So I phoned the church, invite all my friends. Can you open the house for me? I think Mary Lowen and Bob opened the house for us. And they call all those people to come to eat. I bought the food to feed them. So that's it for the day. My recommendation for all the sponsors. When you sponsor, you have to follow the guideline for the sponsorship. The sponsor have a 1-year commitment to provide housing, finance, and emotional support. They need to be follow up on these policy. Do not just the refugee wherever they come from. Many refugees came here and they have valuable skills. and experience as a doctor, lawyers, or engineers, but they still cannot find a job here. And sponsors have to have faith in them and help them to get the job, to help them to, even the university, agency, professional, association need to work with refugees so they can find job that they can use their skill and expertise. Thank you for listening. That's all I share with you today. And, yeah.
Thank you. Can I call Vince Chuang to come up next?
Hi, my name is Vincent Truong. I'm from Vietnam. I came from a large family. We all came to Canada together, and both my parents, 7 brothers, and 1 youngest sister. Anyway, I have a very bad memory about Vietnam when I would think of it, because all I think of is just war. You know, because our family witnessed major war happen in our city in April 1975, before the communists took over our country. Our family was hidden in the underground bunker for days because thousands of bombs rained over our city. As a result, about 80% of the buildings collapsed, and over 2,000 people were killed. And as a result, the whole city would smell of dead bodies for months, even after it was cleaned up. It was terrible. Anyway, we lived under the Communist Party for about 4 years, and of course, there's no freedom, and the curfew every night, and our life had changed, which we're not used to that. And we feel like we all live in a cage, basically, and we could not run our business as usual. And even though we have a very successful family business, and we making noodles, and we roasting coffee, and we were still concerned about our future stability. So therefore, my family decided to plan an escape away from the country. And that is cost. So basically, it cost my whole family fortune, which is everything they made for that 20, 30 years they in Vietnam. They sacrifice everything they have to purchase a ticket to come over here. So to leave Vietnam. Basically, then we left Vietnam in early 1979 by boat, a small fishing boat, 50 foot, carried 267 people stacked like a sardine. There's no room, and very unsanitized. There's 1 washroom on the boat, 1. And all we got fed is 1 cup of water and a bowl of rice soup. Basically, water, put rice in there, nothing but just liquid. So 1 cup of water and 1 bowl of soup. That's every day. That's all we got. On the way to sea, we encountered a major storm, which the wave was 30 feet plus high. And just like a movie you guys all watch, they call Perfect Storm. Whenever I watch that movie, it brought my terrifying memory back, like we're back to the open sea again. So it's a terrifying moment. And we also encounter with the Singapore Navy boat, Navy ship on the way to Singapore. I don't know why my captain wanted to go to Singapore, because they believe that Singapore got a better camp, a cleaner environment. That's why they determined to go over there. But anyway, during the rough sea, well, we got there, the Navy ship don't want us to get to the country. So basically, they want to try to stop us. But during the rough sea, they lost the control. Therefore, they just collide right into our boat. And the captain's brother, just here hanging around the balcony, basically got crushed on the chest and died instantly. And 14 other people, when we got hit, 14 other people was thrown out of the boat and swept to sea, of course, in the rough sea. And my brother Kim, he was one of them. We thought, that's it. We'll probably never see him again. But anyway, he floated on the ocean, out to the ocean by himself for about 22 hours by himself. And and finally, he was rescued and brought back to our boat. And we will continue our journeys for a total of about 15 days because we take a long route, basically go to Singapore, come back, like an accident, and our boat was crippled. We go instead of full engine, we go maybe about 50% engine, wherever, because we got flooded because the boat shipped over, so our boat very slow. So it took about 15 days before we finally arrived to a small Malaysia island, and by the help of the Red Crescent, so it brought it back to refugee camp. And that's where we stayed for about 8 months. And so basically we feel with the, we feel with the total uncertainty about where our future going to be while we're there. And the whole camp was full with the anxieties, and anxiousness where we're going to be. Even though we stay in the beautiful beaches and the warm washing water, but we never really enjoy it. We were there just to wait for one day we'll go to somewhere that we call home. And anyway, so one day we got a good news from that Kelowna Catholic Church sponsors to come to Canada. Of course, Canadian delegation gave us the news, and we were so happy. Finally, that's our turn. We first arrived in Edmonton, like everybody said, with cold, but it was -5. And it was a big shock for us because that was that's about 30 degrees different in temperature. And what we got when we got off the airplane was a flip-flops sandal. And the clothing, what we wear, just basically just a light shirt, light pants, it was a shock. Anyway, we quickly learned how to dress accordingly after that. With the providing, with the service, you guys give us all the clothing, like Pam said, clothing, all that sort of thing, before we go to the camp or wherever, to this place that we stayed overnight. Anyway, we soon arrived to Kelowna, which is Kelowna Catholic Church. There, they welcome us there, and they settle us in and then they looking job for my family, which is my older brother, ready for work. So within about 3 weeks, both of my older brothers got a job, and they also found a school for us as well. Because I was young, so I managed to go to school with my young sibling. And the Catholic Church members were so kind. They're so generous. They spend time to teach us, a little bit English, and even though we have like hand movement language. And they also, they taught a little bit of culture, which is, for us, everything's new to us here. So we learn pretty much everything they give us. We absorb very, very quick as well. And they visit us every week pretty much and try to help us by driving us around, go shopping, clothing, that sort of thing. And they even took us to, the park and recreation center, with all the services, incredible. Make us feel so comfortable around our new surrounding, and that make our life transitions a lot easier. And when we first arrived to Kelowna, I have very little knowledge of English because in the camp we study a little bit, get ourselves ready, but there's not much to learn when you learn by yourself instead of going to community. When we first arrived there, everybody speaks English. I thought that was great. That's the time that you're really actually learning. Anyway, so we challenged for a while, but anyways, finally I got a good basic understanding of English. So I can go outside and talk to people a little bit, with accent, even today, still, but at least I communicate. And that gave me confidence. So finally, in a few months, I managed to find a job in a small restaurant, a small Chinese restaurant. I got a dishwashing job, so I applied, I got it. And that's where I start. And then slowly I moved, and then I finally moved up to prep cook. Then for about 2 years, and then finally I become a chef, a Chinese chef, which is great. You know, by gaining all this confidence, moving up, get to know my environment, you know, in the restaurant. So I challenged myself to ask a beautiful waitress, a blonde waitress in the restaurant out for a date. In which I hope I call my wife today. She's up there video me. With this cooking skill, you tell me what my college education, why I would stay at home with my mom and dad, until I moved to Vancouver. That's when my life started. Education becomes so expensive, and I find that I struggle with it because, you know, we all come, we got nothing. Anyway, so I challenged myself with my own business skill, and I opened a small painting business in the summer. And I have to work so hard, long hours, 12, 13 hours every day. The sun's up and sun down. And then lots of weekend. In order for me to get ahead, I have to do that. So I know my work, you know, that's where we come from. We all work hard to get ahead, and that's what we do. And my parents taught us this way. So the painting business become my focal, and that funded my post-secondary school as well. So, and I finally graduated in business, got my bachelor's degree in accounting, which I apply to my business every day. And while in the university, I remember, you know, I'm always making money, always think of making money. I got a good business background, so there people advertise for a risk investment seminar. I think that's great. You know, that's how you make money in Canada. That's what you got to do it. So I attend many of them, many. Every time they got evening, weekend, I'd go attend them. So with all that learning, the skill, bought the book, finally I managed to purchase many property in Kelowna with my family. And lucky enough, the boom, the market, the price rise up, and that's give away far ahead. So basically, that's how I managed to get to where I'm semi-retired today, even when I was young. And then my whole family worked hard, everything worked hard. Like my parents always taught us that, teach us that you have to go to school to get ahead in Canada. Where they come from, they didn't have a chance to go to school, and they have to work harder to get where they are. But anyway, so my younger brothers, they were all we all attend education to further, my younger brother go to university as well. So he finally graduated in engineer, and he worked civil engineer. Electrical engineer. He worked in Edmonton. And my youngest sister, she also graduated university, and she became a Chinese medicine doctor. He practiced in Vancouver. And my two other brothers own a very successful restaurant business in Kelowna. So we still there. We didn't move anywhere. So they built a deep root in the Kelowna. So anyway, they opened business for almost 30 years since we got together. About maybe 4 or 5 years later, we opened the business. They're still running today. And my other brother got married to a lady down in the United States, which is still also on the boat. We left together. I don't know, somehow they hooked up. Married a lady, and she moved down to the States in Seattle. And he operated propane business, which is where I started. He opened, he managed the property, managed the business over there. And my younger brother in Kelowna, I also taught him know how to paint, and he also operate propane business in Kelowna. And my other brother, Kim, that's the one that got swept out to sea by himself. Luckily, he survived. Anyway, he helped me to operate the one in Vancouver. And with this propane business, we had successfully operate for about 26 years as of today. Like I said earlier, I met my wife in the restaurant. We both attend post-secondary school together. And she was patient when I met her. She taught it very take time and correct my English, that sort of thing. And I have to say, she had to be the one that had make a major impact on my life. And that's where I learned my culture, better than most of my family, of course. She taught me everything she knows around here. And my wife Denise, we married for over 20 years. We have 3 beautiful children. My oldest one right now is in second year in university, and she studied biochem, smart kid. And my younger one in grade 12 right now, my Philip, he's in grade 12, and he's gonna finish school next year, and he want to go to university. And he loves sport medicine, so I mean, most likely some kind of physio or whatever. That's what he's want. And my youngest daughter, Selena, she only grade 10. She fight with me every day. Every day I said, and she said, one day I want to be a lawyer. Because she want to fight. She watch TV, she want to fight. So anyway, so my whole family was very, very grateful that Canadian government gave us a chance to come to this country and for us to pursue our we call Canadian dream. People call it American dream. That wasn't right. Canadian dream. The dream that most of us in Vietnam would never dare to think of is freedom. Freedom, that's all we want, you know, nothing else. And I have to thank you, Kelowna Catholic Church, that helped us to get through all those tough times when we first arrived. And special thanks to my parents. They left communist China in early 1940, and they came to Vietnam, and which they call home. Unfortunately, they sacrificed everything they have and brought us to Canada, and with empty-handed, and they started a new life all over again, which today they call home again, a true home. And without all this risky journey, we wouldn't be here today. I have to thank all of you guys up there. I heard all how you I don't know how you guys did it, but you've gone through all the hard work and to manage to operate, you know, in such a short period and bring that many refugees come to this country. Incredible. I don't know how to say thank you guys for that. And also thank to people who organized this event. Give me a chance to share my story, which I haven't thought about for years. I thought everything's just the past and I'm just moving to my future. And our family was so blessed to be able to live in this country, a beautiful country. And we are proudly to become Canadian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I can call Tua Hua Wong to go and share her story in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tiu Hua Wong, but I like people to call me Hoa better. I still keep my original name. I'm very pleased to be here today to tell my story. I'm a mother of 3, and I Indo-Chinese refugees. It was happened more than 33 decades ago. I was a Chinese born in Vietnam. My hometown was Bạc Liêu, a small city in a very southern Vietnam. It's go to Malaysia very close. I grew up during the Vietnamese civil wars, and I became accustomed to the gunfire, the bombing. Every night we fell asleep to the sounds of war and doesn't know what will happen tomorrow. My parents has a manufacturing business, weaving mosquito nets, but they have to give up such fine, left everything behind, bring us to escape from Vietnam. It was a family-run factory and open 7 days a week. Now I realize that I have been training to be a hard worker since that time. My parents sent me to a Chinese private school. I learned 2 languages, Chinese and Vietnamese. I also learned to be a tailor during the summer holiday when I was a teenager. And this skill helped me to survive when I come to Canada. The Vietnamese Civil War ended in 1975, our life changing along with the country politics. My parents took the whole family, left Vietnam in winter, 1978. Our small group, 13 people, including my parents, 6 brothers, 1 sister-in-law, 2 cousins, 1 close friend, and me. We were part of the 153 people who brought to the small fishing boat leaving Vietnam. We were packed like a sardine in a can. I started my venture as one of the boat people. After 3 days in the open ocean, I was the lucky one. We arrived in Malaysia and stayed on the beach. The UN Red Cross commissioner came and registered all my family members. 1 week later, we were transferred to the refugee camp in Kuantan, Malaysia. We received food supply from the Red Cross. My family applied to many other countries, and Canada was the only one country that accepted us as a refugee. I don't know anything about Canada. On the map of the world, I only recognize the United States, and we applied. The top of that map was North Pole, and it was cold. Where's Canada? I had a warning from friends in the camp who said, Canada was a huge refrigerator. And I knew it was going to be very cold. 4 months later, we were transferred to Kuala Lumpur Transit Camp for Canada. I first glance of Canada was in a documentary film that was shown in the refugee camp. I was surprised that Canada has 4 seasons. It was not as a North Pole like I thought. There were many people in a big city, tall building, lots of cars on the street. I was a relief for my parents. The 30 members of our group flew from Kuala Lumpur to Vancouver, along with the other refugees in a charter flight. We were quick stop in Vancouver and then transferred to Winnipeg. It was our final destination. About 10 families, including ours, we were sponsored by the government to come to Winnipeg. We arrived on an evening in May 1979. It was strong north wind and snow still on the ground. Now I know the reason why I call Winnipeg is a winter peg. We only wore knitting sweater. Our feet, we wore no socks, no shoe, only a sandal we wore from the Kuala Lumpur. We came from 33 Celsius to 3 degrees Celsius. There was a big difference. The tree was bare, no leaf. There wasn't a single person on the street. It looked like an empty town. One of my brothers asked, how we can live in here? I asked myself, did we come to the wrong place? My parents said, we'll be okay, and we live as the other people here. I felt sad, confusing, and scared. How can I call this place home? I found a place to live with the guidance of a Chinese interpreter. This special Chinese interpreter, he's a Canadian-born Chinese, and he spoke Cantonese, which is different Chinese dialect from the one we spoke. I using writing to communicate with him. It doesn't work. Finally, he got his mother to come and help. We had to learn not only English, but Cantonese as well. The government of Canada sponsors us to Winnipeg, pay for 1 month of rent, food, and household use like bed, table, and few chairs. Just enough for us to have dinner. 8 of us living in 2-bedroom apartment. but we feel safe and comfortable, better than the refugee camp. My parents have 7 children and I am the only girl and the eldest. In our culture, I feel I have responsibility to help them when I was growing up. I choosing to stay with my parents and help them to raising my younger brothers until I have my own family. I have no professional skill. I went to work after a few days I arrived in Winnipeg. Without any language trainings, I only know work. I started a job as sewing machine operator in a garment factory. It was very difficult to communicate with local peoples. I tried very hard to learn English and Cantonese at the same time when I was at work. From guessing the body language, same like the other people guessing me. From the workers slowly explaining from my own mistake. I took an ESL class in the evenings after work and on Saturdays. I speed up my learning by memorizing all I had learned and practice it right after that. I could communicate with people around me and learn about the culture and lifestyle. It was very difficult to me to adjust. My accent still Chinese Vietnamese. My English still not that good. Every time I talk to people, when they say, hey, I have to repeat again because I know people not understand me. 6 months later, I became a supervisor at work. I was training and looked after the newcomer. I take that job for about 2 years. I have my second career was a teacher's aide in high school. I help in grade 12 students with math. That was a good place for me to improve my English. In 1981, I started my own business, the first Oriental grocery store owned by a Chinese refugee in Winnipeg. No experience, tight capital, lack of research. I was struggling for the first few years. I keep doing my job outside to generate money into the business. But the business is doing well and has survived until now. I'm very appreciative the Canadian government give me a chance to review my life from the ground up. For prepare my airfare to get me here, first month support of living, even compared to the people that are sponsored by the church, they get better than I am. Helping my parents and we to find a place to live and a job to work. And thanks for I'm here today and to share my story with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call Vuti Lee to come up? Thank you.
More than a Good morning, everybody. My name is Vuti Lay. I was born in Cambodia, in capital city Phnom Penh. I came to Canada in 1983. I have 5 children and 3 grandchildren. On Thursday, there's a Cambodian presentation talking all about the Khmer Rouge and what's all the emotion. Today, I cut that down. I'm trying to be as... Okay, so I start with, I would like to show you this video. This video is created by a Cambodian Association of Ottawa. It's created while we're doing the 30th anniversary celebration for Cambodian resettlement in Canada. On October 26, 2010.
More than 1,000 years ago, deep in the jungle of northern Cambodia, a civilization arose that built the largest and most beautiful temples the world has ever seen.
School, 15,000 people were beaten, tortured, and even subjected to waterboarding.
Thank you for after the fall of 1975, we escaped to Thailand. My family, including my grandmother, my mom, my sister, and my brother, we came to we came to Thailand in 1979, stay at Kavidang camp, a refugee camp. As we've been through the trouble in Cambodia, we don't want to go back. My mom decided to send my brother and I to a different camp and hoping that we can settle, we can apply to any other country. In 1981, when we went there, there's no other country to apply. When we got there, all Canadian, United States, Australia, they already came to pick up a whole bunch of people. That was in 1980. So, in 1981, the rest of my family went to the United States. So we left two brothers there, me and my brother. Because I don't want to go back to Cambodia, I then decide, I'm telling my brother, let's find some girl and get married so we can stay in Thailand. And we did. My wife has a relative in Thailand, and she hoping that she want to go to stay in Thailand. And so my brother, so we got married in 1981. In 1982, me and my wife and I have a daughter, our first daughter, in a refugee camp. In 1983, the Canadian Embassy came and opened the door to accept any English-speaking refugee. And my family and my brother's family, we are lucky to get accepted and were given the airplane ticket to come to Canada. In May 1983, we arrived at the Mirabel Airport. Well, at first, when we got there, it's May, so it's not that cold. So we got off the plane, and they don't let us go anywhere. But there's a tunnel that you have to walk in, straight to the hotel. There's a tunnel that you walk through, and then you got on the bus. And then the bus drive us to a hotel. And we saw that, wow, they don't let us come down, to step on their land. And finally, when we get off the bus, we are cold, even in May. So we're cold, say, okay, now we understood why. Okay, so because we were sponsored by the Canadian government, there is no sponsor to be there for us. And that is just the first stop that we stopped at Montreal. The next day, we took the bus to Ottawa. When we get to Ottawa, we were staying at Aristocrat Hotel, and the manpower program sent a lady. She is Laotian, and she came to bring us right away. They bring us to the bank, first of all, to the bank, give us money to start. And after that, we asked her. I speak English, but my wife doesn't. But lucky, my wife speaks Thai, where Laotian and Thai can understand each other. So she asked where we get the rice. And what she did, she brought us right away to, that time it was IGA. They do sell rice there. So our first meal in the hotel was rice, chicken, and broccoli. That's all we know, because broccoli is very similar to a Chinese broccoli. So we've been eating there for about 2 months. Just that, nothing else changed. And lucky, because when we were in the hotel, there's the same immigrant that came, the Cambodian immigrant that come first in about a month or two. They show us, they tell us where we get rice. Chinatown, walk there. So we'll go there, we grab the rice, and we're back to the hotel, we're happy. Also, the first store that my wife know right away is, my friend show her where it is. It's the Salvation Army. So we walk to Salvation Army, and wow, everything cheap in there, because we didn't know that a second-hand store. We thought it was a store. So, thanks to the Canadian Immigration Center in Ottawa, that working together with the Cambodian Association, that was helping us find a place to stay. 2 months after we stayed in a hotel, we got our first apartment. 1-bedroom apartment on the 17th floor. Wow, I never been there. In Cambodia, the highest storage is probably 5 storage. 5 store. And we live in a small house. My house in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, we have 2-story building, but this is 17th floor. Anyway, changing the weather is very, very hard for us. First of all, I speak English. My wife doesn't. And so she would not go anywhere. She's afraid. She stay up all the time. With the help of the manpower program, government give us 6-month grant to get back on our feet. So I took the ESL course, ESL class to improve my English. I thought I speak English. No, really true. In refugee camp, I do the translation. I was teaching ESL, and I thought my English is good. When I came to Canada, I understand nothing. Well, with the help of that, 2 months later, I found my first job, part-time job as a dishwasher at the place next door restaurant nearby. The place next door? Right, that's where I worked. Part-time job, because people told me that you can't get a job at one shot. I went there, I go there and talk to the manager. They said, you want to work? You can work today. I said, yes, I'm doing now. So I worked there for about a couple months. And I finally, we were on our, we pay our own rent now because I have part-time job. I'm trying to the best I can. And when I worked there for about 9 months, I have a courage to ask my manager, can you give me a waiter job? And you know what he said? He said, do you have diploma? Sorry, I don't. I was in grade 10 in Cambodia. That's way back in 1975, which is 14, 15 years after. I never touched school. I never learned anything. I don't take math, nothing. I was disappointed and keep thinking in my head, said, I need to get something. So after working general labor for 10 years, I started to realize that it's time for Wuti to get a job, a better job. But so I decided to go to adult high school to get my high school diploma. With the help of because the age that I think that time I was like 30 years old, and the 10-year study in Cambodia, they give me enough credit, about probably 25 credit or so. So it took me 2 years to get my diploma. I'm glad with my diploma. At the same time, after I graduate, I got a job offer as the construction cleaning business. So I took that. Works very well for 2 years. Then my dream does not stop there. I'm continuing to go to college to get my degree. Because I don't know much about anything else, but when I graduate, I only have grade G12 and 11 Math A, advanced. So I decided to go for photography. It's easy, all you need is English. Yep, so I go there. On the registration date, I went there, I'm gonna register my course. But there is too long line of the course, the computer engineering technology and computing science. And then my mind has changed right there. I said, if it's a long line, it's probably good. So I checked those two computer course, engineering and computer science. There is the difference between those two that the problem is I don't have experience. I forgot, I don't know anything about physics. Computer science have 2 courses of physics. Computer engineering, 1 course of physics. That's where I'm going. Yes, it is. Computer engineering technologies course that time, it was only 3-year program. I struggled for 4 years. Doesn't matter. I graduate. In 1997, I graduated and received my diploma. and have no job for 8 months. I don't have a job. I can't get a job because I can't get co-op. So luckily, one of the private company hired me to do a technical support while I'm trying to sell my computer. So I'm doing the computer business on the side and working on that. A few months later, well, I've been working there for 2 years. During that time, I sell computer to one of the client. And the client that I sell computer to, he want to install a modem that was given by his father who worked for the government. It took his father to figure, like to install 3 days, and he can't put it on. And for me, 5 minutes. This is how I get into government. True. In 1999, you know when almost 2000, everybody afraid of the year of 2000? That's where I got the job. Because I asked his father, say, can you please get my resume and help me to get in the job in the government? And he did. He gave me a good few words. This guy, 5 minutes, done. You need that guy for 2000. Yes, it is. So I worked my way. I got the job offer there. At the same time, in the same time that I got an interview by the government, also a private company wants me to. Well, 8 months, nobody called me. Now everybody wants me. But I decided to go with the government. I start with the CS1, and my plan is to move up quickly as I can. I said, 2 years, I'm going to be CS2. And 2 more years, I'm going to be CS3. It doesn't work. It worked on the CS1 to CS2. I progressed it very well. To CS3, you need bilingual. Sorry, my bilingual is English and Khmer, not French. Okay. The experience of when we first came to Canada, changing everything else in our lives is quite different. People was asking, like everybody asking, do you know anything about Canada? When we came, we didn't know. All I know is there's a 6 months of snow and 6 months not snow. And I said, well, should I go there? But I have to go because I want to go somewhere. I don't want to be there. So I'm going there. I'm expecting 6 months not working, staying home. Well, how are you going to work at home? Sorry, how will you work when it's snow, right? Sorry, I came here to Ottawa. Doesn't have much snow like her, right? But, you know, expectation is wrong. And there's a lot of help from the Cambodian Association and CIC, and also a lot of good Canadian friends that helping us to cope with everything. I remember one day when on a minus 40 degree, I was in the apartment ready to go out, and one of the security guard in front of the apartment where I live, he said, "Where are you going?" I have only I didn't wear the warm enough. I don't have scarf, nothing, right? So he said, "I'm going shopping." And he said, "You better wear something nice. You know, like something warm." Nah, don't worry. My country, we don't have snow. We sell ice, you know. We make ice cube and sell. Here it's free. So I didn't believe him. I went out, 5 minutes later, I'm back in. I got frost everywhere. Yeah. So we got a lot of help from neighbors, people that we know that, you know, they correct my English most of the time. I'm still now having problem with my English. I would like to, lastly, I would like to say that if there is one thing this country has taught me, it is that anything is possible. Canada is a place for opportunity, growth, and development, and I am so fortunate to be living here. I'd like to thank Stephanie Stobie for inviting me here today to share the story with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we started late, so I hope that you're okay with us going a little bit later. These stories are so amazing, and we are not giving them very much time to each tell their stories. And in my culture, I'm not supposed to interrupt my elders, and they're all my elders, so they can speak. So let's welcome Dr. Piao to come and share his story.
Good afternoon. I think it would be a great idea to compile all the funny stories that refugees have had. It's one way to cope with life in a new country. We did a lot of laughing and we telling each other jokes about what we went through, and that was fantastic. So lots of funny stories. My experience as a refugee coming to Canada, 82, very similar to Wuti's experience. I arrived in September 1982, but I can say that I am the only permanent refugees on this panel. I finished my PhD at York University in 1994. I went to work in Singapore. I taught there, and then I went to Tokyo. I learned Japanese there for 11 years. And August 2010, I was offered a position as chair of the Department of Political Science in Winnipeg. Back to Canada. July, I was offered a position as chair at Ryerson University. I keep moving nonstop. So I don't know whether I will be staying here for long, knowing my history. I have not written my story, so what I'm going to say is not very coherent. Because when I talk about my past, it's just difficult. And also, I get emotional. So it's difficult to really write a coherent story of my life. So I was wrestling last night with the idea of what I should say or should not say in 10 minutes. I called my mother. I say, what difficulties did you have when we arrived? You know, I just want to test her. And she said, no difficulties at all. Everything was fine. We were so happy. We just got to Canada, you know. Tell people there at your conference, we're so thankful. We are so happy. All right? So we thank you for all the work that you did in helping us to make, an adjustment to life in Canada. My experience has been absolutely 100% positive, I have to say. And thank you so much for ending our nightmares. Wuti showed a presentation about, what happened in Cambodia, the killing fields. That was probably the biggest nightmare that a person could ever go through. So when I came to Canada, when the plane took off from a refugee camp, September 1982, at that moment, I said to myself, nightmare over. Because when we were in a refugee camp, every day in and day out, we heard the news. The Thai government would send us back to Cambodia. That was a very difficult time. That sense of uncertainty made it so difficult to bear. So when the plane took off, I said bye-bye, that was it. So I'm so grateful. I arrived in Canada 82, already in my mid-20s. When I arrived in Ottawa, very similar to his situation, I was so impressed you know, I work for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in the camp, so I learned a lot about Canada, although we were supposed to go to Hawaii in the United States instead of Canada, too cold. But for some good reason, we got turned down at the last minute, and the American official with whom I worked for resettlement said to me, "So, Pong, would you go to Canada?" I said, "Well, if not United States, Canada is fine, but not France." So the Canadian Embassy called back in a few days, said, "You're on your way." So that's how our story coming to Canada began. And so I don't want to repeat what T already said, but I just wanted to say that when I arrived in Ottawa, my family, I'm the oldest child in the family. My mother is a widow. My father was taken away for execution in 1975. So my mother and her 7 kids, you know, we made it to Canada. And my mother felt proud that she could take her 7 children out of the terrible situation that we were in. So we were taken on a bus to Ottawa, and we were all excited. Everything looks fantastic. Law and order, as you know, cannot imagine. If you live in Cambodia at the time, the reign of terror, just every day, you say to yourself, this could be your last day. Right? If you live in that kind of environment, feeling that this could be your last day, it's a terrifying experience to have. So when I came to Canada, the only thing that I could think of was that freedom, no fear. And at the same time, the experience was not at all positive in the sense that because of our experience, you know, we were surprised to see police officers, for instance, on the road. And we were still afraid. We don't want to, you know, get close to police officers. And you know, we were terrified when you see people in position of power. We were just feeling intimidated. So when we came and you know, after several weeks and learn how police officers in Canada behave, we felt so good. We felt happy that we did not have to face any person in position of power that intimidate us. I mean, in refugee camp, you know, the Thai soldiers would intimidate us. Night, day, especially nighttime, they would come and sometimes beat us up for no reason, right? So refugee experience, a camp experience was not that fantastic. It's better than when we were in Cambodia, but not in a refugee camp, because most of the camps in Thailand were under Thai military control. So it was not very positive at night. So when we arrived in Canada, there were some challenges. Weather, one of the challenges, but we like snow, so it was not too bad. Language, of course, was a major challenge. Thankfully, my brothers and sisters were sent to school. Unfortunately, I was not asked to go to English, to go to ESL, take, you know, English. They said, well, your English is good enough. You used to work for United Nations, and that's fine. So I said, okay, that's fine. Do my best. In fact, I've always taught myself English, and that's why my accent is a bit funny. But I would say that another challenge that my family had, and Cambodian refugees in general had, was that Cambodians with their Buddhist background tend to be too passive, did not want to make demands on others, tend to accept things as they come, not pushing, not trying to get what they needed. So I think that was a challenge, and that included me as well. And if kids go to school, they don't question, they don't open their mouths, and they don't, you know, raise concern or anything. That was a challenge too. But then again,
I would say that the biggest challenge that we had at the time was psychological and social economic. Psychological in the sense that Cambodian refugees were probably comparatively the most traumatized group of refugees at the time. I mean, can you imagine, I grew up during the Civil War, 70 to 75, and then the killing fields, 75 to the end of 78, and then the Vietnamese invasion. Can you imagine what we went through? And had no education for 7, 8, 9 years. And all of a sudden, you ended up in Canada. Not only that you didn't have, you had a terrible life experience, but also being traumatized, terrified. So psychologically, it was almost damaged. I still had nightmares. For the first 15 years in Canada, I had nightmares every often. Nightmares, the Khmer Rouge chasing me, trying to kill me. That's how tough it was. So, and education was also a problem for a lot of Cambodians. If you had no education for 9 years, 8 years, and then all of a sudden you come to Canada, everything is so different. Everything is so strange. It was very difficult. But I would say that, but I went to university after 2 years, straight to university, Waterloo. I thought Waterloo made a big mistake taking me in. Because I went there as a mature student. And I was 25 when I started my education, 26 actually. But when I look back, I thought it was naive. I was naive. I was probably stupid, not knowing how tough university education would be. But after 9 years, without any formal education, I don't know how I did it. I just don't know, looking back. But I made it. And I'm grateful every day. My colleagues sometimes complain, as chair, as you know, but I'm also always grateful for that. But I would say that the agency, the people who were instrumental in my success was government agency, manpower in particular at the time. I would say religious organization, very important to me. Lots of church members, lots of people who attended churches provide us a lot of support. In fact, the one person that I am eternally grateful to was my godmother, who's a Canadian, who was a nurse in Thailand, and she's familiar with Thai culture, Cambodian culture, took me under her wings and supported me every step of the way. Anything I wanted, I needed, she was there for me. So it's so important to have a personal connection, to have a personal relationship, to have a family, a role model who care, who help every step of the way. So for me, success is important, it's possible, especially in our case, Cambodian refugees, is when you have a very good family, someone who cares and guides us day by day, faithfully, without complaints. So for me, lots of people help me move on, get adjusted, but it's a personal relationship that makes all the difference. When you get depressed, government agency would not come and ask you, how depressed are you, right? But it's the one person who says, yes, I understand you, I care about you, and I'm here to help you. I mean, depression was a big problem, when you come to a strange land like Canada from a country that is close to hell, like Cambodia. Depression. But individuals can make a big difference. And I have to say that I'm so grateful for the opportunity to dream again. That's what I could think of when I came to Canada after a year working at a St. Hubert restaurant, washing dishes. But I always kept my dream alive when I was in refugee camps, different refugee camps. I taught myself, I got any books I could get my hands on, and I read it, and I wanted to study political science when I was in a refugee camp. So when I came to Canada, I called people up and said, you know, what can I do? What should I do? You know, I was proactive as well. So it's important. It's important for refugees to be proactive and at the same time get a lot of personal support. And for that, for me, based on my experience, that's how I got this far. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all the panelists for all your amazing stories and your stories of courage and resilience and perseverance. And I think, you know, listening to all the panelists, one of the things that really drew you to Canada, or what you appreciate about Canada, is the freedom and being able to dream of a better life, and the importance of education. And with all of you, you were able to continue with schooling when you have become adults already. And so my mom's story, when the priest told her at 28, you're too old to learn, here is a testament that you can learn at any age. And so I think that's really, really amazing. And yes, that personal relationship that has been talked about with each of the different panelists, how people and communities who show care and emotional support and willing to be there for the refugees when they first come to Canada is so, so important. And so I definitely see this in all of the stories. So it is about 22. Do you think we have time for a few minutes of questions? Okay, so if you have some questions, please come forward to the mics and ask your questions.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Michael Casasola. I work for at the UNHCR, and I was trying to come up with a question because I just really wanted to come first have the opportunity to thank you for being so generous to share your personal stories, and it's very generous of you to share all of them because they're quite profound and meaningful. But when I was listening particularly to the last speaker, because I was writing down different things going, you know, how did they deal, because a lot of you didn't talk about the cultural gaps. I mean, you alluded to them, but, you know, in terms of coming from very important cultures and then trying to adjust to Canadian culture, and how do you manage that in terms of even identity when your family? Then you didn't talk about the strains either, about, you know, other family members that you may have left behind in refugee camps. But, and then I was thinking about, what should I ask about trust? Because how did you ever learn to trust people after all the experiences? But the last point you made about the psychological impact, which is so seldom named, I guess I was interested from the other panelists, you know, what helped you in dealing with some of those profound issues, which you've mentioned, you know, depression, the challenges that you've got, the sense of loss in Canada. What were the things that you leaned on that helped you to integrate to the extent you could?
Well, as far as the psychological affecting, because I was young back then, so, you know, to me, I'm a quick learner. So I don't find that, well, we're always just scared about language and things like that. When you got that, everything's fine, but we did not experience anything like what he gone through, because I think his life's gone through a lot more trauma than what I did. What I did just, you know, it's just a basic scared scenario, that sort of thing. So I don't know, any other panelists have anything to add on, but.
Like I said, the first year I was so depressed, and even though I went through the hardship, I still not give up. I keep going, and it's very, really, really hard because when I have problem, there's no one to talk to.
Okay. Well, culturally, it was very difficult. As I said, Cambodian were generally Buddhist always willing to accept their fates, willing to bear their suffering, and not really making demands on anything. They, like my mother, which, no complaint, I'm happy, we're here, we're safe, you know. We just don't expect a lot, right? That's, you know, I mean, and that's also a problem with Cambodian kids as well. When they go to school, they're afraid to ask questions, for instance. Culturally, you know, you're supposed to respect your teacher. You don't question, you don't ask a question, and you have to accept whatever the teacher said. And that is a big challenge for Cambodian children. I think now probably there's a big difference, but at the time, my youngest brother was around 10 years old, you know, just scared, right? Not being able to, you know, ask for help. And I've heard story about Cambodian students who go to university, and even if they got the wrong textbook, they didn't ask why, you know? So things like that. So, you know, it's culturally, it's very painful in the sense that we are afraid to ask and challenge and get help. So I think refugee agency, you know, in cases like this, need to be more proactive. School need to be more proactive, reaching out and things like that. I was lucky in the sense that I was proactive. I dream of going to school, no matter what. I had $200 in my bank account. I go to school anyway. I don't care. So it's just that determination, but it's just difficult for a lot of people who just get scared and afraid. Psychologically, very difficult, because I'm still traumatized. I have to say that I'm still traumatized. Now, I feel like I get nervous so easily, I panic. It's not something that I can overcome. I try to be as brave as I can be, but you know, it's not going to go away. The nightmares, as I said, 15 years in Canada, every now and then, I had nightmares. When I woke up, thank God I'm in Canada. You know, I mean, that's my reaction, right? Now, no more. But, you know, each time I had nightmare, I would wake up the next morning and say, so happy. I don't have to face that anymore. Right? So as you can imagine, how traumatized, you know, people like Woody and I were. And at the time when we were in Cambodia, yeah, I have a long story to tell. Some night, Khmer's official would come and take one of us away. The next day, said that's his grave, you know. So you never knew. So you just don't know how to describe it. It just that's why my mother, all she could think of last night, please tell everybody I'm grateful. But no one, I don't think, who went through what we went through would ever fully recover from the traumatic experience that we had.
Thank you. John?
I just want to make one comment regarding this stress factor. I worked with the IRB, and I saw a lot of it, and much of it not diagnosed. My father fled in the 1920s, before he came to Canada, with his father. They fled, and because a lot of people were being killed, they escaped, and he had recurring nightmares until I think shortly before he passed away, he says, you know, last night I was fleeing again. I guess my one comment is, if there's anything that can be done to identify and help people to overcome that kind of a problem, it should be done. And some of the people are not aware of what they're suffering. So it can be identified, number one. Number two, if there's some kind of help that can be given psychologically or however, that should be followed up.
Yeah, I know in my family's case and with my mom and her depression in that first year, you know, according to our culture, we don't go to family counselors. We don't go to a therapist and a psychologist to talk about our problems. And so what would have been ideal was to have someone from her community, an elder or someone that she trusts and someone that cares for her to come and sit down and talk with her. And so to go to a therapist, that is very foreign for many refugees. And so when she became friends with some of the ladies from the ESL class, some of the ESL teachers, that's, those were some of the people who helped her through this, through their friendship, through their caring and their compassion, and their support of her. She was able to, get over that depression. But to send her to a therapist, that is not something that we are used to from our culture. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Janet. I just wanted to share a few comments. I'm a second generation born here in Canada. My parents were refugees from Cambodia. And first of all, I guess I should thank the panelists for, the first set of panelists in the first half of the morning for being key and instrumental for, just the huge influx of Southeast Asian refugees. And also for the second panelist up here today for sharing all of your stories. I think to answer your question a little bit, who he had commented earlier, a lot of the times, like with my mom, she was very depressed all the time, and sat in the dark and had these recurring nightmares and dreams. And as a young person in high school, I was that person who she leaned on me, with all of her troubles. And I mean, it was tough for me as well in high school, having to deal with school and all of these things, but I mean, it was really foreign to me because I was born here. I was, I grew up in the Canadian system, so that was all that I knew. And to experience with her and go through what she went through really helped her. But I think at that time, there's not really any kind of infrastructure in place to help, people with depression, especially fleeing these types of, war or, et cetera. So I see that now too. I mean, we don't oftentimes, like the older generation who have been through these things, like some of the panelists, they don't want to talk about it. They want to put it far behind. And like I worked at a community health center with Cambodian refugees for about a year, and it was exactly like that. They didn't want to share their stories, they didn't want to talk about it, but it doesn't mean that they weren't suffering. So, I mean, I think now if we look at it, there's no, because we've lost that kind of government relations with like the third party to deal with like these, the groups of people. And I think if we can maybe reflect a little bit more and see if we can, build these types of things to help support some of the, like my parents, et cetera, for them to deal with their depression, that would be great. And that's all I wanted to share.
I just want to add one thing. As I said, I talked to my mother last night. She's always positive, but deep down in her heart, I know for a fact, over the years, she's severely depressed. Doesn't want to talk about, share her thoughts with anyone else, cry, sometimes just sit and cry. After 30 years, she still cries. But it's just, I feel bad. I've been away a lot, and I can't be there, and it's just difficult to get help. And she's speaking English, okay, but not at the level that she can talk to a psychiatrist or medical doctor. And if someone is not out there, I'm trying to, I've been asking my brother and sister to help her, but she just doesn't want to open up. And I can say that, yes, after 30 years, she's still severely depressed.
I know when I was looking for panelists, for the one on Thursday and for today as well, there were a number of people who, were not willing to tell their story, and they said it's too difficult, and they just want to forget it, and they want to live and for today and look towards the future, and so there are many people who are uncomfortable sharing their stories.
My name's Claire, and I'd like to thank you for your presentation this morning. I found it particularly impactful when you talk about the psychological impact that your experiences have had on your life. And I'd like to ask two questions. First of all, it's just a factual question. Vuthi, what was the name of the refugee camp in Thailand that you attended or that you went to?
Kawidang Camp.
But you said you went to a second one.
Yes, that the other one is it's Aranya Pratek Aran Camp. It's at Chonburi,
Okay.
Thailand. And actually, they closed that one too. So me and my brother went to another camp, Seren Camp.
Okay, not Panat.
3 camps.
Okay, you were at 3. All right. Thank you for that. My question, my big sort of wondering question is, how do you understand yourselves, the 6 of you? What's your cultural identity? Who are you in terms of what culture it is that you identify with? And then the next question beyond that is then, what is the culture that your children claim as their own, and how are you working with that possible tension?
Can you start? Yeah, Mrs. Wong? Yes. Why don't you start?
Now it's about time we're talking about the next generation. Between myself and my children still have a gap. They're Canadian born, Chinese, well, I should say, but they always say they are Canadian. Some part of the culture in the family, I was expecting them like the way my parents growing expect me, but it doesn't work. So sometimes we have some thought, but the kid never understand, or we think they not understand. So very difficult to share sometimes with my experience.
For me, I have mixed culture too. For my children, they grew up in Canada. Of course, they know only the Canadian culture. And for me, I still have mixed. Sometimes I use my culture to my children too. But they behave very well because when we become a Christian, and the Sunday school taught them they have to obey God and obey parents. That
Even if we weren't taught in Sunday school, she tells us that we always have to listen to her, no matter what. Even even when we're older and we're adults. And so I think, yes, sometimes we do live in between the two cultures, but I'm really glad that she has taught us our Laotian culture, and some of the values and beliefs, and I hope that I can continue on teaching some of those values and beliefs to my own children. But it does get harder and harder, right? And I'm married to a Canadian, and my children don't speak Lao or Thai, and so that makes it more difficult. And my husband doesn't speak our language, but I hope that through our relationships that we can continue to value these different cultural aspects.
Well, for me, I'm married to my wife here, so my kid pretty much, we pretty much westernize everything, and I always try to remind my children that where I came from and what the culture are, we always respect, and elder, of course, and to do, like, try to conserve, and respect, and we try to teach them some of the things that our parents taught us back in the country, and always want them to, to go to school and be good, help society, and try to be a person. And my wife's also Catholic, and we brought them to school, go to the school every weekend, and attend church, and every other weekend for them to communicate with other peoples around and keep them very, very good ethic, work ethic, and be moral, and I think we'll find. I always call them, you're a banana, but white outside, yellow outside, white inside, but always try to keep up your parents' culture.
I have to say that I'm a very proud Canadian. There is a degree of Cambodianness in me, but I consider myself very Canadian in the sense that I value Canadian traditions and things like that. I'm proud simply because of my background. You know, as I said, you know, coming out of a nightmare, and here I have nothing to complain, very few, if any, but always feel grateful and thankful, and always feel that I have to do something to give back to Canada. That's how I feel. I want to give back to Canada, and sometimes I see Canadians who are not as Canadian as I am, because I'm thankful, always thankful. That makes me a proud Canadian. My children were born in Tokyo, so they're Canadians, but you know, we taught them when we were in Tokyo about Canada, Canadian history, and then when they see snow, you know, wintertime on TV, oh, lucky Canadian. They feel that they want to be Canadian by, you know, enjoying the snow. So when they came to Winnipeg, they really became true Canadians. So, yeah. But the important thing about me and my wife and our children is that, you know, having my background is always love my children. For me, it's the greatest joy, the greatest blessing. It tears my heart when I see parents and children separate, taken away, you know, for whatever reason. So I work very hard, but I don't live to work. I work to live. I love my children, and we want to make sure that our children will grow up becoming responsible Canadians. That's what my goal is. Thank you.
With 5 kids and 3 grandchildren, my experience is my culture, I'm telling them every day. It's just like my mom told me every day that she told me, and I hate that. Because when I was young, I was preaching by her every day, over and over, from here out there. But eventually, I found myself, I'm my mom. I'm telling my kid just what she told me. So my experience is, I believe that all, like, you are from a Buddhist culture or any other religious, doesn't matter. As long as you are the person, you are the parent, you tell the kids where your background came from. All my 5 kids, they think they are Canadian culture, like completely, but they respect our Buddhist culture. When every year we have a ceremony, and if I don't tell them to come, they don't go. That's all I can say. But they do. They said, Dad, I'm Canadian. So am I. I'm Canadian too. But, you know, so to all that it depends on yourself, that you explain to your kid where your background is. Doesn't matter which religion or anything, but if you keep telling your kid, I'm sure they remember that.
Thank you. I think I see James standing there, so I would just like to wrap this up and say thank you very much to all the panelists for your stories and your willingness to share this with us. I think it's just been an amazing experience, and also to thank everyone who has been involved in immigration, refugee sponsorship, and I think without all the work and partnership and collaboration of all the different groups, that you know, this Indo-Chinese movement wouldn't have happened, and happened in a way that was, you know, pretty well orderly if we consider the number of refugees that have come. So thank you, James.